This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with emergency ordinance number 20-A16, an emergency ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. This is the CAC hydraulic, and the committee members who are electronically present at this meeting. That is me, Yolanda Speed. And let's see.
Would you like to read through the roster? Would that be helpful?
Please, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Jane Fogelman. Tito Chetta.
Here.
Samantha Strong. Bill Love. Michelle Busby. John Neal. Rosemary Miller. John Lewis.
Here.
Yolanda Speed, you already said that. Kim Swanson.
Here.
Chris Rembold.
Here.
Cynthia Neff.
Here.
Michael Corrigan. James Clemenco.
Here.
Julian Bivens. Diane McKeel.
He's here.
That's everybody I have.
Thank you. The persons responsible for receiving public comment are the Places29 Hydraulic Community Advisory Committee and Albemarle County Community Development Department staff. The opportunities for the public to access and participate in electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County calendar. Please note that the chat is disabled. If you send something in the chat, this is sent to the meeting administrator. To ask a question or share a comment, use the raise hand feature to indicate that you would like to speak. County staff, Ms. Michaela?
Yes, the county staff that are present are myself, Michaela Accardi, we have Carolyn Schaefer, Cameron Langell, and Kevin McDermott. I believe that's it. Did I forget anyone? Okay, that's the county staff present.
Thank you. CAC members, have you been able to review the meeting minutes and if there are any corrections at this time?
No, I think they were great. I motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Kim Swanson, the co-committee, the vice chair, can you take over at this time? Thank you.
Sure. All righty. So tonight we have a couple items on our agenda that will take up probably the bulk of our evening. We're going to have a presentation from county staff and Williams Mullen again for the Old Ivy residents rezoning applications. So at this point, I will turn it back over to the county staff person, Cameron.
Thank you. Let's see. I guess we can go ahead and begin the community meeting, Michaela, for Old Ivy.
Sure, I just want to check in with the applicant team. Do we have everybody moved over to a panelist that you all need here? Since we have lots of things, I want to check in.
Thank you, Michaela. I think we're getting very close. I just want to make sure John Clarkson's on. Looks like he's just connecting now. So I believe that's all of our applicant presenters.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I interrupt just a minute? Jacqueline Salazar just sent me a text. Michaela, would you please send her the Zoom link? She's one of our members. She just is having trouble finding it. That would be lovely. And I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I'm going to share my screen and we can begin the community meeting for Old Ivy residences. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Cameron Langell, and I'm a principal planner with the Albemarle County Department of Community Development. And I've been the lead staff member reviewing the Old Ivy Residences rezoning application that is under review right now. So tonight we're having a community meeting for this project, and there's going to be a presentation by staff followed by the applicant. Staff's presentation is going to focus on the purpose of the community meeting, as well as an overview of the county's development process, and then a general overview of the county's recommendations for the properties that are part of this rezoning from the comprehensive plan. Once I'm finished with my presentation, we will turn it over to the applicant to discuss the specifics of the proposal. And then there will be a period where we can do question and answers with CAC members or any members of the public that are here to attend this community meeting. So to begin, community meetings, the purpose is to share information about proposed projects and give members of the public an overview of the development process, specifically relevant policies and regulations that county staff consider when evaluating the proposal. It is also an opportunity for the applicant to share information about the specifics of their project and to answer any questions from members of the public who have questions or concerns. One thing I do want to say is that staff and CAC members do not take any actions on this application tonight, meaning that no final decisions are made as to whether it should be approved or denied. Ultimately, that responsibility goes to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So tonight is just an opportunity to provide feedback for staff and the applicant. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the development process overview and how that works in the county. There's two basic processes that occur, and one of them is called by right development, which is subject to our zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance regulations. And then there's legislative applications, which follow a different process. Zoning regulations are a set of laws that counties can have that basically dictate where development can occur and how it occurs. Specifically, it groups uses of land uses together based on the zones that they're located in. And it also establishes parameters for things like building heights, setbacks, landscaping requirements, and other improvements when land gets built on. By right development occurs through a site plan process or a subdivision plat review process, which is processed administratively by staff, and it does not ultimately go to the Board of Supervisors or the Planning Commission for final approval. To put it simply, the zoning ordinance dictates what can be done on a piece of land today. Every piece of land in Albemarle County, for example, has a zoning district assigned to it. So when a proposal comes forth, whether it's a subdivision or a site plan, we simply compare it against our regulations and make sure it complies with all applicable requirements. The comprehensive plan is a different document, and it applies to what we call legislative reviews, specifically rezonings or special use permits. The comprehensive plan is a document that establishes the 20-year vision for the county. Basically, what it is the long-range vision for what land uses should occur, specific transportation improvements that need to occur throughout the county. It has recommendations related to parks and green systems and affordable housing, economic development. Our comprehensive plan in the county has master plans, and what those are focus documents that look at a specific area of the county and every piece of land within the boundary to determine what kind of uses should occur there and what development proposals are appropriate. The county does have 5 different master plans, and like I said, those apply to areas that we call the development areas. Now, the comprehensive plan and master plans come into play when a rezoning application such as Old Ivy Residences is proposed. Rezoning applications are called zoning map amendments in the county, but most people know them as a rezoning. Anytime there's a rezoning proposed, county staff compare the proposal against whatever the comprehensive plan recommends for the property, as well as the master plan recommendations. We do also have staff from our partner agencies like the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Albemarle County Service Authority, who review rezoning proposals for compliance with state and local regulations. If it's in an area that we call the entrance corridor, the county's Architectural Review Board also evaluates the proposal. When we're reviewing a zoning map amendment, it's called a legislative review. And what that means is it's different from an administrative or by right development proposal. Legislative reviews such as zoning map amendments are discretionary when it comes to final approval or disapproval. As you can see here, there's a list of who reviews the application, and first it goes to staff, like I mentioned on the previous slide. Once the applicant decides that they want to move forward to a public hearing, the application goes to the Planning Commission for a recommendation. The Planning Commission ultimately recommends approval or disapproval, and that gets forwarded to the county's Board of Supervisors for a final action. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what the comprehensive plan says for the properties that are involved with the Old Ivy Residences zoning map amendment. What you can see here on the right side of the screen are the parcels that are involved in this proposal. They're highlighted in yellow, and they are located on the north side of Old Ivy Road. To the west, the properties are bordered by the Route 29 and 250 bypass. To the east, they're bordered by University Village and Huntington Village. And then to the north, they're bordered by a piece of land that's actually owned by the University of Virginia. There's 5 pieces of land in total involved, and they are approximately 35.39 acres in size. The existing zoning, there's actually 3 different zoning districts that apply across these 5 parcels. 3 of the parcels are zoned entirely R15 residential, that's 28 acres. R15 residential zoning allows for basically any type of residential development, whether it's single-family detached, single-family attached, or multifamily apartments. It allows for that as long as it does not exceed 15 units per acre. There's a small area on one of the pieces of land, it measures 1.8 acres, that is zoned R10. R10 allows residential uses at up to 10 units per acre. And finally, there's one of the pieces of land is zoned entirely R1, and that's a much lower density. It only allows 1 unit per acre. And these properties are within 3 of our zoning overlay districts, specifically the entrance corridor, the airport impact area overlay, and then the managed and preserved steep slopes. So what the Old Ivy Residences zoning map amendment is asking for is to get all of these properties to be zoned R15. So those 2 parcels that have R1 and R10 zoning, they would be rezoned R15. There is a zoning map amendment that was approved by the county back in 1985, and it has a proffer that says that before any development can occur on one of these pieces, 4 of these pieces, the Old Ivy Road corridor needs to be upgraded to a certain improvement level to the satisfaction of the Board of Supervisors. So the applicant is asking us to evaluate that and make a recommendation as to whether the corridor has been improved to that extent. Then there is a 1996 zoning map amendment application that was also approved that applies to one piece of land, and it specifies certain uses that can occur there. The applicant is asking to be released from that approval of that ZMA as it applies to the one parcel. The 4th component of this application, and this is what you can see on the image here, is that the areas of preserved steep slopes, which are the green areas, they're labeled A and B, and you can see some arrows pointing to them. They're asking to reclassify those slopes to what we call managed steep slopes. The difference between preserved and managed is that preserved is supposed to be natural slopes that are the result of something like a water body feature. They're naturally created. Managed slopes are slopes that are actually man-made. They're still the same steepness, but they're not natural. So these properties are located within the Southern and Western Neighborhoods Master Plan, and that's the master plan that specifies the future land use recommendations. What you can see in this image is the orange color, which applies to 3 of the 5 parcels, represents the urban density residential use classification. And what that allows for is residential uses at densities between 6.01 acres or units per acre and 34 units per acre. Secondary uses that are appropriate within that classification would include things like schools, public and institutional uses, and then small scale commercial office or commercial service uses. The green color that you see represents Parks and Green Systems future land use classification. And the types of uses that are recommended to occur with that would be things like parks, playgrounds, outdoor recreational facilities, trails, natural areas that aren't going to be developed at all. And that classification does incorporate existing environmental features that are sensitive, such as stream buffers, FEMA 100-year floodplains, and slopes. So a quick timeline of where this application stands in the process. It was submitted to us back in August, and staff has conducted one review of the proposal, and we've issued comments to the applicant. Right now, the application has been deferred at the request of the applicant, which means that there are no public hearing dates scheduled yet with either the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors. From what the applicant has told staff, they will be submitting a revised version of this application based on our first review comments to try and address some of our concerns as they related to the original proposal. So all of that said, I just want everyone to know that this is at the very beginning of the process in terms of review with the county, and there's no final date set yet to make a determination on it. So for anyone that you know that may not be here in attendance tonight who is interested in this and wants to share any questions or comments they may have, you will be able to reach out to me via email, and that's my email address on this slide. I will put it back up at the end of this community meeting so everyone has it. But you can send me any questions you have, any comments you have as this moves its way through the process, and I will keep everyone updated as to where it stands, specifically when a public hearing does get requested. So that concludes my presentation. I guess I'll stop sharing, Michaela, and Valerie, I believe you're going to be doing a presentation for the applicant tonight.
Thank you, Cameron. I'm going to kick us off with a couple of quick introductions and then turn it over to someone from the Greystar team, if that's okay. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate your time tonight. I'm Valerie Long with Williams Mullen. We are the representative for the applicant. We appreciate the opportunity to share information about this project. I am going to let John Clarkson with Greystar make some quick introductions and share a little bit of information about Greystar.
Thank you, Valerie. Very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all this evening. We're very excited about this project. We've been working on it for quite some time now. It's an opportunity that we're seeing occurring more and more across the country, and that there's opportunities in university towns that lack housing opportunities. Very important housing opportunities to provide that level of affordability to make those communities sustainable over the long term. And this one is a unique one in the sense that we can provide not only multifamily housing, we can also provide single family housing, which we know is in high demand because it is such a wonderful place to live in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, for the access to all the amenities, the school system, and everything that we're going to talk about throughout this process. And so we don't take that lightly. We know that this is an important project, and we need to work with the community in order to strike the right balance for this opportunity. Greystar is one of the largest multifamily developers in the country. We are in most major urban markets and suburban markets. We specialize in multifamily development, but we also are doing some life science opportunities as well as industrial. My team tonight, we have Dan Nickerson and Joe Miller, and I'll let them take the vast majority of
Known caller.
Very excited to also have KTGY and Michael Medic and our friends from Timmins who are working on the civil engineering for the site. So we have a really good team in place to hopefully put together a great plan for all stakeholders, and look forward to working with you all. Who's next?
I guess I'll jump in with some of the quick land use and then let Dan and take it over from there, if that works.
That works.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here. All right, everyone see that okay? Thanks again. I'm going to scroll through this pretty quickly. Sorry, I'm having an issue with it's not forwarding. Bear with me, I'm sorry. My screen is not advancing. Why don't I let Dan Nickerson and Joe Miller, looks like I'm frozen.
Yeah, it does say Valerie Long has started screen sharing, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think my screen is frozen because at least the picture of myself, I'm frozen and everyone else's. I'm gonna ask, so I can't access my control. I'm gonna see if Dan Nickerson and or Joe Miller want to jump in and just briefly introduce themselves, and then I will try and I'm gonna stop sharing and see if I can try this again.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Nickerson. I'm part of the Gray Star team. I am very, very excited about this project. It's near and dear to my heart as I'm a graduate of Darden, so I know the area very well, and think this would be a great add for not just the Darden community, but the Charlottesville and Albemarle community as a whole. So as John talked about, we are very excited about the plan, the different housing types specifically, and being able to offer not just multifamily product for rent, but also townhomes and single families. We've seen a huge increase in demand from residents for that type of housing, as well as a huge demand for residents to have more air to breathe and to be able to go outside and enjoy the natural habitat, especially given COVID and work from home. And we love this piece of land, and we'll get more into it afterwards after Valerie talks through the land use. But we really think that our plan emphasizes the ability for our residents to enjoy the land. And we think that's the biggest demand driver for residents and the number one thing that they'll be looking for here.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, everyone. I apologize for my technical difficulties. Hopefully you can hear me now and see my screen.
Valerie, we can see your screen. You're still in your notes format. I don't know if you want to get into the other format. This is Diantha.
Thank you, Diantha.
Yeah, we can see it in here.
Okay. That seems to be part of what's causing the issue, but hopefully you can see that.
That's
Is it
good.
looking now?
Yep.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can see that.
We'll try not to go into your mail and read it.
Thank you. I'll try not to impose that on anyone. I know Cameron covered a lot of this, so I'll be very brief or get through this because I want to allow enough time to explain our plan and have questions from everyone. He did explain the comprehensive plan designation for the property. We can go into more detail on this as the committee and public may be interested, but a point of clarification is that the main reason that these areas are shown almost entirely in open space or green space is because the time when this plan was last updated in 2015, much of these two parcels were owned by VDOT because this was going to be part of the Western bypass. So when the comp plan was updated, the thought was there was a need to have a buffer between the neighborhood areas here and the bypass. Obviously, with that not going forward any further, the land was conveyed back to the original owners. And so what the general approach we're working on is to stay out of the sensitive environmental areas, but to take advantage of the areas within these parcels that are not sensitive so that we can achieve some of the goals of the comprehensive plan in terms of density. We also want to just point out this was the prior version of the comprehensive plan. As you can see, it's dated January from 2002. And in that version, the entire site was designated urban density residential. We have a couple of quick images from Google Earth. I know that many of the members of the public who live nearby know these areas well, but just for the benefit of those who do not, this is obviously Old Ivy Road. This is looking at the entrance to what we call the buyer parcel. It's the 5-acre parcel zoned R1, and an existing entrance is further down. This is looking west. And getting a little bit further, there's an existing driveway here that would be reclosed, and the new entrance to the project would be where the buyer parcel entrance was a few months where I showed you before. So this is getting a little bit closer to the bypass. You can see vehicles turning onto the northbound ramp. This is the existing entrance. If you go by, this will be closed. And this is looking back in the opposite direction, back down towards where the project entrance will be. And this is quite close to the northbound on-ramp here. This is sort of the edge of the parcel. if for point of reference, this is the Ravana trail coming out of the woods here. View from the northbound bypass ramp. So you can see there is some vegetation there, but not, you can see through some portions of it. And then this is further north on the bypass where it becomes more vegetated. As Cameron mentioned, we did update, or I think we had shared with him and others on the county staff that we were going to be revising our concept plan and other materials to respond to the staff's comments. We actually submitted those very late this afternoon. So the plans that we're showing you today are the revised plans that we just submitted. So I want to just make sure everyone knows that Cameron and Kevin McDermott and other members of the staff have not seen these before. So to the extent you have questions for them about it, just realize that they are seeing it for the first time. But we wanted to be sure to share with all of you exactly what's going on. So I'm going to now turn it over to Dan Nickerson with Graystar and let him tell you more about it. Dan, I'm going to keep this on my screen and until you say otherwise.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Valerie. I think yep. So we received the comments from staff, and we wanted to show, as Valerie said, the most up-to-date and respond to their comments, which were very helpful as we continued to put this together. So as I said before, I think the number one kind of thing that we love about this site is the natural landscape, and we've done the best job we could, and we think we've done a really good job preserving the landscape while enabling the density that the comp plan allows. We really want to add multifamily housing as well as the townhomes and single family homes that we think are key for our renters, as well as really enabling a neighborhood feel that we think people want. And the reason why people come to Charlottesville and Albemarle County is for that neighborhood, that natural habitat, and all the amenities that come with it. With that, I don't want to steal too much of Michael Medic, our architect's thunder, so I'll hand it over to him to kind of dive into the plan in more detail.
Great, thanks, Dan. Valerie, if you would move it, I guess, to the illustrative plan, probably the best one to speak to. Again, my name is Michael Medic. I'm an architect and planner with KTGY. We're a national firm. I happen to be based out of our Washington, D.C. metro area office. As Dan said, our goal from day one has been to create a truly integrated neighborhood of a variety of housing types that are suitable to various lifestyles. And those types do include both multifamily, single family of various types, townhomes, as well as duplexes. But our intent has always been to work carefully with the land, take the topography and the contours of this remarkable property into all of our thoughts as we started to lay this out. The housing types are going to be of a scale and character where they will seamlessly interact with each other and create a neighborhood scaled streetscape that focuses on walkability and mobility through multiple means on the property. As I said, our intent has been to work with the land. It's the focus of it is not only on the dwellings, but on the outdoors itself. We really have looked at how we can integrate all of these building types into the natural amenity of the property itself, but also enhance those amenities by providing a couple of amenity buildings that also have outdoor pools. We've integrated playgrounds, tot lots, some outdoor sports courts, a trail system, paths, and outdoor spaces, both active and passive in their use of the green space. And that includes the Ravana Trail and how it continues to run and access through the property. All of these components will work together with low impact on the existing land itself. We've respected all of the stream buffers, and we're really looking to create a community that provides the privacy and the security for each resident within what can be a very cohesive neighborhood. So with that, I guess, Valerie, I can turn it back over to to you, or let me know what's the next best step.
And I think, let me just make one point that I know a lot of people are interested in, which is the traffic, and then we can turn it over for questions and answers. And we, I can leave this up on our screen or go back to the other one as much or whatever the group would like. We know that traffic is an obvious issue for lots of folks and of great interest for everyone. We do have our traffic engineer, Thomas Ruff with Timmons Group, on with us tonight. So if people have specific questions on that issue, I'll likely defer to him. He's been working on the traffic study and looking at lots of various things. So we are aware of the issue. Our traffic study confirmed there are congestion issues, which I don't need to tell any of the neighbors about, particularly in the area between the bypass ramps and Faulkner Drive and the ramp where you get off the bypass heading towards the Bel Air Market. So we've looked at that. Obviously, those issues are existing, have been growing and increasing over the past few decades. But Greystar is committed to continuing to help look at those challenges and collaborating with VDOT and the county planning staff as appropriate to work towards and identify solutions. So we know that VDOT is looking at it actually right now, and some on the staff may be able to elaborate on that issue. And we're happy to sort of contribute on a proportional amount to help provide some solutions. So I'll leave it at that for now, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. And I will stop sharing my screen for the moment, but I can always pull it right back up.
Share some brief instructions about questions and answers really quick. As Cameron mentioned earlier, the community meeting is meant to be an informal opportunity to ask questions and share feedback with county staff and the applicant team. We have many people attending this evening, so thanks for being here. And we also ask that you be mindful of your airtime so we can have as many people participate as possible. So to ask a question or share feedback, click the raise hand tool at the bottom of your screen, and staff will call on people in the order that hands are raised. Carolyn is going to be helping us with that. She's going to switch between CAC members and members of the public. And as a reminder, there will be public hearings. Applicant team chooses to request that, where formal comments can be shared during the meeting or by email. So Carolyn can kick it off by calling the first person with their hand raised.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna go with Mr. Long. He was the first attendee. It was first hand raised with Mr. Long. So I'm gonna let him speak, and then I'll go to John Lewis next.
I appreciate it. Can you
Go ahead, Mr. Long.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is simply, I represent Madison Park Condo Association, which sits between the bypass and Faulkner Drive as you exit 29, the bypass. What specific plans do you have for increasing the size of Old Abbey Road and the off-ramp? I mean, I understand you started the process, but where are we in that process?
Sure, thank you. As part of the application, one of the recommendations of our traffic engineers was to construct a right-hand turn lane along Old Ivy Drive that will allow more cars to turn onto the northbound ramp of the bypass. So that's an existing issue, and that will help with that issue. It certainly will not solve all of the existing congestion issues. There are challenges there with the narrow roadways and the railroad trestle and lots of other intersections coming together there. So we understand that VDOT is looking at those issues currently, and is hoping, as we understand it, to at some point release some recommendations or so forth from consultants when they have them. So we're not in a position to be able to make any of those offsite improvements, but Greystar is willing to help contribute to some of the future solutions on a proportionate basis, as well as make improvements on site within their control as recommended by the traffic study. So again, along the frontage of the property, building a nice long right-hand turn lane And our traffic engineers tell me that will help quite a bit, at least in keeping traffic getting onto the bypass more quickly and help reduce some of those congestion levels a little bit. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Lewis. Go ahead, John.
Hi, thanks for your time. My name is John Lewis. I'm a member of the CIC board, as well as a board member of the Ravana Trail Foundation. And looking at the map, I appreciate the efforts made to allow the trail to pass through the developed areas and maintain a lot of its existing natural state. So thank you for that kind of attention. I've got two questions related to the use of that trail. One is the Ravana Trail Foundation hopes to work with Gray Star or whomever to have a method of understanding so that we can continue to maintain that trail, or at least bear that in mind. It's something we like to do, but if not, it needs to be addressed. Who would maintain that trail in the event of trees getting blown down, water, erosion issues, that kind of thing. So something to consider, and I'm happy to work with you as a liaison. And number two is the street crossing as the trail comes out to the street. And again, with all this new traffic and potentially pedestrian traffic, I don't know if it's a Gray Star thing or a VDOT thing, but it's a consideration for pedestrian crossing there, or zebra stripes or something that, lets cars know driving on that section that there is pedestrian crossing. Those are my two comments.
Great, John. Thank you so much. First, on the Ravana Trails Foundation, in the trail generally, and I'm happy for the Gray Star folks to join in, but I can tell you from the very beginning, that was one of the main issues they stressed to us, is how much they see the trail as an amenity for their community. And so they're very excited to continue it. It would need to be relocated a bit to accommodate the project, but the plan works to maintain as much of it in its natural state as possible. And then regarding the crosswalk, we agree completely. And as part of the revised and updated plans that we showed earlier and submitted to the county today, we've added a sidewalk along the entire frontage of the project along Old Ivy Road, as well as a pedestrian crosswalk, so that among others, those who are using and enjoying the trail can more safely cross from essentially the project site south to where the trail picks up. So thank you.
Thanks.
One thing I just want to quickly note, Megan Adostop with Williams Mullen, also on the crossing, is that it's not a street. So it's a travel way within the development. So we wouldn't need VDOT approval for that pedestrian crossing. So it makes it a lot easier to make that crossing.
All right, next I have George Thomas. Mr. Thomas, go ahead.
Hi, I'm actually Sally Thomas, but I'm using George Thomas's machine, sorry. I'm here at University Village, and we're on those slides you were looking at, we're at the bottom where the houses are all piled up against our border. That's, we have concerns about the safety of our land and other such concerns. But just a short explanation of who we are, because I'm not sure everyone has come over to see us, which you're very welcome to do. But we're a condominium of people who are 55 or over. And in fact, our average age is 86. And we have many people who use walkers and strollers and are pushed in their wheelchairs, and they use our roads and they use our land. And it's a major way in which we keep healthy. We don't have any medical care here, so we're not an assisted living, we're an independent condominium. There are 94 units, and a whole lot of people are sitting in a meeting room watching all of this, but they, in view of your time constraints, they're not all going to speak, and you should be happy about that. But there are a couple of people here sitting in the same room that I'm sitting in who would like to speak. So David Schaefer.
Hello, I'm David Sprague. I live at 500 Crestwood Drive in University Village. Last week, I sent an email to Mr. Langell, the principal planner for Albemarle County, in which I described current conditions on Old Ivy Road that I believe make it inadequate right now, and certainly not a candidate for increase in vehicle traffic from a large development. Among the problems that I pointed out were the narrow passageways under the railroads at either end of the road, which allow only one-way traffic at the eastern end. The frequent flooding of the eastern underpass, the low clearance of the underpasses, the often occurring congestion at the underpasses, and the lack of sidewalks and bike paths near and in the underpasses. I'm not going to read that email now, but I hope it will be made part of the permanent record and available for others to read. Regardless of the action that is taken on this project in the future, we need to find some new ideas for enhancing the safety of Old Ivy Road for pedestrians, bikers, and vehicles. And I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Pass it on.
Good afternoon. I'm Lyle Hallowell, also from University Village. I'm glad to hear that a representative of Timmins is here because I've read the traffic report carefully and I have some specific concerns, and I'm hoping that a renewed traffic report will be done, especially given that the report itself says the conditions were atypical when it was done on a single day, May the 6th, for two 2-hour periods, 7 to 9 and 4 to 6, with 5 intersections. I won't go over all the specifics, but I know from personal experience that that doesn't even include the time when St. Anne's School gets out and backs up the bypass off-ramp tremendously. And I suspect the same thing happens in the morning. And so without going into the details here, I think that it has to be redone, the data study, since we hope that the projections and understanding of the road conditions starts with the data and then goes from there. And so there needs to be a study not limited to a single weekday with expanded hours that reflect real use conditions, not modeling estimates and assumptions. When University of Virginia classes, offices, and St. Anne's are in full use, and definitely include an additional intersection, Falconer Drive, Route 29, 250 off-ramp, so that the operations from St. Anne's School are included. That way we'll know more effectively just what the traffic problem we're dealing with is. The 10% increase that was used as a way to deal with that is interesting, but I don't think that's going to capture the problem effectively. That problem includes, as my neighbor pointed out, the problems of pedestrians. I note in looking over the impressive data tables, almost 0 pedestrians counted during this entire period, with a few braving the underpass at the east end, which, by the way, I'll add to that people on this road take turns at that underpass because it's so narrow, they don't want to take a chance to collide. In any event, non-locals go through there at high speed. And I've seen that happen not only with 2 cars, but also with pedestrians under there, very dangerous condition. And that somehow has to be addressed no matter what, regardless of what happens with the development. But if the development's going to add significant numbers of people, as well as pedestrian interest in walking that direction, then major concerns for that need to follow. And especially, I think for all of us, the Ivy station is the main emergency station for this whole area as it currently sits. And certainly when a development occurs, any emergency vehicles are going to have to get through those 2 underpasses. Under these traffic conditions, there's no pullover room under those underpasses. There's no way emergency vehicles are going to be able to get that done, which I think is a major worry for all of us. And I suspect that it's a worry for you too. And so I hope that more study will be done and additional interpretations and recommendations included. Thank you.
And I know that time is getting even shorter, so I'll try to keep my comments really short too. But it's we don't oppose having neighbors, and are delighted that they are neighbors that care about the environment. And we also do, and we have a lovely old stand of trees, some over 100 years old. And we want to try to protect those. And the young people who are trying to get to the law school and Darden School will just trample down those trees, paths, and our lawns unless there are alternative routes that are safe and attractive to the students and to the neighbors. And so that's a major part of the conversation that we're having with Gray Star. And we have other concerns, but I really am aware that the time is going by, and I appreciate so much your public service. And I suggest that we'll send you some written comments if that's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to go to Chris Rembold. Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I have several questions. First, I think it's good that the trail system is being preserved. Secondly, it looked like there was going to be a second entrance down in the bottom right of the picture. Is that actually connected up to somewhere else, that there's another way for cars to get through? Because that's an awful lot of traffic coming on a single road. The third comment is this: is if we're going to do dense development like this, the idea of having walking access and bicycle access to the main sections of Charlottesville are necessary. We're going to end up building another part of Albemarle County that's not connected to Charlottesville and shops. I think that's a little disappointing, and there's going to be an awful lot of traffic coming out of that. I think that, yes, there's going to be problems. I think we should include representatives from St. Anne's parents the next time we do this.
Thank you. All right, next up is Kathleen Jump. Kathleen, go ahead. Okay. Well, I'm not sure what happened to Kathleen. She's no longer here. I don't have anybody else with their hand up at this very moment.
I'm sorry, this is Kathleen. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yes, I
okay,
can.
sorry. Sorry, I'll be brief also. Thanks very much for all the information being presented tonight. I'm a resident of Huntington Village, which is also right next door. And I have concerns. I have several concerns, but I think we've talked a lot about traffic, so I'll say more about that. I think that when I moved to this area, I realized how landlocked this neighborhood that I now live in is. I am someone who likes to walk, and it's not possible to walk from Huntington Village to any commerce. So this dense development, which it seems to me is more designed for walkability, to have some commerce available, this kind of density in an area that's so landlocked does not seem prudent to me. I heard some mention about a sidewalk in front of the development. I have had to walk down by Bel Air Market across the street to an office where I worked. I walked home, and this is no man's land for any pedestrians to be out. And there are sidewalks. 2420 is a new, I believe it's the largest building the university has built as a unit, office building. We have 2420, and there are sidewalks in front of 2420, and people walk back and forth, but there's no walking to, there's nowhere to go. The Eastern Bridge is a concern, and the pedestrians at that end of Old Ivy Road put their lives in their hands when they cross under that bridge. I know that VDOT has been out and looked at that bridge this year, because of concerns that have been brought to their attention. I know the county planners. So there is a lot of attention focused, but I don't think there are expedient solutions or simple solutions or anything but very expensive solutions. So just to say, I see there are 685 parking spaces associated with this new development. So I'm assuming those are for cars. And then all the support vehicles that are necessary, FedEx, postal deliveries, emergency vehicles. So I just want to associate myself with the comments that say we now don't have a very workable road. There are sidewalks already on Old Ivy Road that end. And creating this density in a place where really the only option is to get in one's car at this point, with our knowledge of how we can build better than this, doesn't seem to me to be a prudent place. I have other concerns regarding two things that we would lose, like critical slopes, this land, the environmental aspects that it holds, that I think we will lose. But let's focus on that one quality issue of life, which is traffic. So thanks for sharing, and I'll continue to be interested in how this proceeds.
Thank you. And I want to I see Vito has his hand raised. So if it's okay with everyone, after Vito makes his comment or asks his question, I can provide an update on a number of the comments that were made and show the plans again and clarify a few issues. So thank you.
Am I up?
Can I just
Valerie,
say,
am I up?
Valerie, real quick, when you do that, can you show where University Village is on the map so we can better understand, you know, the population that's living there and their concerns?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Go ahead, Vito.
I think it's a very clever site plan. I love the mixture of housing types. I think it's very well done. And it's consistent with the comp plan. You certainly have my support. The obvious issue is Old Ivy Road and the single lane at the train trestle. Can that be replaced and make wider? And that would certainly solve a lot of the problem.
Come on, Kevin, just fix it.
I mean, has that been talked about? How extensive is that?
It would really be good to let Kevin address, and Kevin, introduce yourself, and it would be good to let you have some comments.
Yeah, just fix it.
Yeah, we have been looking at that. My name is Kevin McDermott. I'm Albemarle County planner in charge of the transportation program. We have been evaluating both ends of Old Ivy Road, as Valerie mentioned, also very recently, to try and see if there's options for improving them. Nothing has jumped out was mentioned as an easy solution right now. Trying to expand that underpass is going to be extremely expensive and possibly not possible in the near term, certainly. So we're trying to find other more creative solutions that can address some of the problems, and we're not there yet. But I can say that VDOT does have a consultant that is performing a study on both ends of the road, looking at pedestrian issues and traffic issues, and trying to come up with an option that we might be able to make a grant submission for in 2022. So we're going to continue to work on it, and we'll keep you all informed about the options. It's just that right now we haven't gotten anything that we think is going to solve the problem with a reasonable amount of money.
Next, I have Danielle Shiplet. Danielle, you can talk now.
Hi, I am the association manager for Huntington Village Condo Association, and I pretty much just wanted to make sure that, you know, our main concern is we have a mixture there. We have a mixture of owner occupied residents. And then we have quite a few of the Darden students or undergrad students there as far as for rentals. And our main concern is with this is just, well, one of the main concerns that have been expressed to me is just the safety of our residents coming and going out of Old Ivy Road. I think it's pretty much the same as University Village and any neighboring property that's on Old Ivy Road. It's just, how is Old Ivy Road going to handle that much more volume of traffic when it's already so congested now? You know, I try to go out there just to get to a meeting. I can imagine going home during traffic, 5:30 at night. So, that's our concern. We're just trying to figure out, we don't want to see anything happen that's going to be more detrimental to our residents on an already, it's an already a sticky situation there on that road, because like Kathleen Jump had just admitted, you pretty much take your life into your own hands if you walk underneath that train trestle. So it's just, I just want to just make sure that everyone, knows that Huntington, that's our concern, or one of the main concerns as of right now, is just the access on and off of Old Ivy Road is more or less my concern at this point.
All right, next we have Jane Fogelman.
Is there any thought of being able to access the Leonard Sandridge Road for at least traffic in one direction?
Yeah.
And just a comment, when I was a little girl, that road was the only way to get west of town, like Garth Road. It went over to Garth Road. It was the only way to get there. And I've been on that road almost every day of my life since then, it seems. And it's never changed. It's always been just exactly what it is now. So good luck on making it any better. But I think that would be my biggest concern, is the traffic. That that's got to be the number one thing you all try to solve, because that is a huge concern for all of the neighbors and all of the residents in that area.
Cooper. I don't have anybody else up with their hand up at this time.
Well, thanks everyone for all of the helpful input and comments and questions. We really appreciate it. And we share a lot of those same concerns, and we certainly want to make sure that the project fits in well with the community and the adjacent owners, and obviously want to ensure that safety for everyone on Old Ivy Road is focused on heavily. I would like to share my screen and point out a few additional items if I could, that may address some of the questions and just maybe point out some of the issues. So I'll do that. There. You all see that okay? So as I can. This is, again, the illustrative concept plan, and just a few other things to point out. As I mentioned, there is proposed to be a sidewalk along the entire frontage here. And then the Ravana Trail comes through the property and would connect at that same location. And so folks using the trail or anyone else could use the sidewalks along the frontage, and then a crosswalk, as I mentioned, is proposed here. There are sidewalks on the south side of Old Ivy Road, not the entire span of Old Ivy, but large areas of it. And as someone maybe mentioned, the bridge that is roughly in this location, VDOT is getting ready to replace that bridge. And as part of the planning and designing of that bridge, I understand that Kevin McDermott from the county and his colleagues, and probably Mrs. McKeel had some say in it, worked with VDOT to try and make that replacement bridge as pedestrian and bike friendly as possible. I think they both realized it's not ideal, but they were able to include in that project design that there will be a pedestrian lane on the new bridge. So it's not ideal, but folks coming from the site or from the trail will be able to cross over, connect to the pedestrian network that's already in place, and then at least cross that bridge. We certainly understand it's not perfect, but we did want to at least point that out. A few other changes that we added into the plan based on feedback from the staff is tried to add some kind of traffic calming measures along in here to help make sort of continue the feel of the small community in this area. You can see as well, we have a number of paths and trails. We tried to indicate how the sidewalks would be connecting to that trail network. You see a variety of amenity areas that are shown here, and along those areas to, as I think Mike was saying, really focus on the outdoors. One person expressed a concern about the critical slopes that would be disturbed, or steep slopes. So I thought I might explain that issue as well. Generally in this area here, if you look on the county's maps, there are some areas designated for preserved steep slopes. And Cameron mentioned and explained that a little bit at the beginning, but in general, those means that if slopes are designated for preserved, it usually means that they have a higher level of sensitivity. We're happy to go into this in more detail if necessary, but the short story is that we've confirmed through a variety of research methods and aerial photography that those steep slopes are actually man-made. They were created as a result of construction and fill waste. I believe maybe when Leonard Sandwich Drive was created. A lot of this area has already been disturbed. And so when the designers were looking at it, their main focus was to preserve as much of the natural wooded area, particularly around the Ravana Trail, as possible. And if the areas that had already been disturbed were man-made steep slopes, to focus on preserving these areas and providing as much conservation benefit to the community and the adjacent owners and users of the Ravana Trail and others as possible. The engineers can speak more in better detail than I could, but they have a plan to essentially redo this entire area and improve it from a conservation standpoint. Among other things, it would be making some of those existing slopes less steep and being able to have an engineered stormwater management plan that will address concerns and prevent issues that typically are a concern when steep slopes are being disturbed. A few other things I'll point out. The plan is to have essentially a 20-foot buffer along the boundary of those residences between the bypass. Obviously, this area will be maintained, and this area here as well. Another element that was added to our plans with the resubmittal we made today is we show a general location in this area for a future transit stop. It's not necessarily the final location. We just asked our engineers to identify one location where it might work. And we plan in the next few months to be coordinating with Kevin McDermott and his colleagues and others at the transit department for CATS to identify what location might be the most appropriate for a transit stop. But the Greystar folks welcome the opportunity to contribute to that. I think those were the main issues. Again, we understand traffic. We realize that we can't obviously solve all the entire issues. We're glad to hear that VDOT is taking a look at it from a more big picture perspective. And as we indicated, we're willing to help contribute to some of the solutions once VDOT and others determine what those may be. We also had some site sections that I would be happy to share, particularly because we understand some of the concerns and questions from the University Village residents. So if I could have a few more minutes, I know we're getting up on our time, but I can show some of those. Oh, and sorry, let me also speak to the issue of density. Whether you look at the density in terms of gross density, which just measures total acreage divided by the number of units, or net density, which essentially takes out these sensitive areas from the calculation, we're well within the range recommended by the comprehensive plan for urban density residential. As you all probably know, that density range is recommended to be from 6 to 34 dwelling units per acre. We had our engineers at Timmins identify the area of sensitive environmental features, including there's a stream here with a water protection ordinance buffer around it. So all of this area here that will be preserved comprises just over 8 acres of land. And so when you remove that from the math and you calculate based on the number of units, and by the way, our current plan is to have about 490 units. That's essentially what was reflected on this plan and the illustrative plan we showed you. And based on that, we're still under 20 dwelling units per acre. So well within the range that's permitted by that designation. Just for frame of reference, if we were to, if you're wondering, well, what would it allow if you propose a number of units all the way up to the maximum? That would be something as high as 918 units based on 34 dwelling units per acre. So we just wanted to point that out. Also with regard to parking, someone made a comment about that, which we agree. We show 735 spaces. That's actually less than is required by the county zoning ordinance right now. But there is a process through the site plan stage where we will be able to officially work with the staff to request a reduction. Greystar doesn't want to build more spaces than it needs. We know the county doesn't want us to either, but they have a process to look at a request and make sure that it's still sufficient. But given the location of this property to other areas that are walkable, the Greystar folks who are very experienced in developing and managing these types of facilities feel comfortable that the proposed number of spaces for this community and this location will be appropriate. And then some site sections that our architects provided. This is just to demonstrate the relative elevation of the neighborhood compared to University Village, because we'd heard a lot from residents in University Village already over the past few months with concerns wanting to make sure their lovely views are not broken up or disturbed as a result. The units that are, let me go back one screen. All of these units here will be most likely no more than 2 stories tall. These are single family detached homes. These are duplexes. These are slightly smaller single family detached lots and homes. These are townhouses. Those are all going to be roughly 2 stories. These buildings over here in the gray, those are the apartments. Those would be 4 stories. And part of the design team's approach to this, in recognition of concern for the views of the University Village residents, was to essentially shift them to the southern area of the site so that they're well without, as much as possible outside of the views. So that's what, so these and at units at 2 stories and at a lower elevation, we think will certainly not contribute to any blocking of views in any way. And then similarly, we have with the 4-story apartment buildings, we transition with these 2-story townhouses to the adjacent Huntington Village, where their units are also 2 stories, I believe, certainly not at least 2 stories. So we, again, going back to the site section, the architects are able to show this. This is looking sort of from inside the site as a point of reference. There's the pond, and these are those units. Here's the main travel way. You can see that based on the elevation, University Village is much higher up. So we don't think that'll be a problem. We also have an image site section that looks from Route 250, because that's an entrance corridor. Old Ivy Drive is not an entrance corridor, but we wanted to be able to demonstrate for anyone who was concerned about it that, what the relative elevations would look like from there. So as you can see here, if cars over on Old Ivy Road, based on the difference in elevation and the distance of the site, we don't think they'll be able to see the Greystar buildings once they're built, given the topography. And then similarly, this is looking from the bypass northbound ramp. So for orientation here, this is the main entrance to the site. This is Old Ivy Road. This is the northbound ramp. This is Huntington Village here. So it's essentially looking from the ramp across through. And again, given the difference in elevation, we don't think that, there obviously will probably be some visibility, but we don't think that those units are going to have any type of an adverse impact on the entrance corridor. And then it helps to see the relationship. The Huntington Village townhouses are actually located at a slightly higher elevation than the future Greystar units. And then finally, we have a similar section through a different area from the bypass, kind of looking in this way to show the relative elevation there. So we worked hard, the designers did, the architects, the planners, the engineers, to really balance the essentially competing goals of trying to preserve as much of this land as possible, obviously have a reasonable amount of density that's within the range recommended by the comprehensive plan, but also thoughtfully design the location so that you know, the buildings aren't towering above the bypass or towering above anybody else's home nearby. Very thoughtful. And so we think this plan reflects that. Again, I'll go back to the illustrative plan, and I would ask if anyone else on the project team had any questions or concerns or comments that they may want to add or follow up on. We do have our traffic engineer here, Thomas Ruff with Timmins, who may provide any updates. But again, we're aware of the traffic situation and look forward to working with VDOT and Kevin and his colleagues on potential solutions that Greystar could contribute to.
Valerie, if I could just interject for a second. I think one of the questions we heard from one of the commenters was if there's any other additional connections being proposed, like vehicular connections. I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that at all or not.
Sure. Well, as probably most of the folks on the committee know, and likely others as well, a project of this size, any project over, I think it's 60 dwelling units, has to have a secondary access entrance, at least for emergency access purposes. So the concern being that if for some reason this main entrance to the property were blocked due to an accident or some other reason that emergency vehicles could not come in the main entrance, there needs to be at least an option for emergency access. So the project does have an access easement that goes kind of all the way around University Village. So that's would be, if necessary, sort of the ultimate route would be used for that purpose. We are talking to adjacent owners about other potential solutions and future interparcel connections. Nothing has yet been identified. We did, frankly, Cameron, at your request, we did, when we updated the plans, we did show this, people can still see my screen, show this as kind of a future, a stub out at least, so that if and when, and as many people know in the community, that's a county policy to at least not create an impediment to a future interparcel connection. So we're not proposing a connection there, but we're showing it as a potential stub out if and when the adjacent property redevelops. Our project would not be an impediment to that. So we hope to know more about a future connection soon, but that's where we are right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. It looks like we have one more question.
Yeah, we do. James Clemenco, go ahead, James.
Yes, Ed, Valerie and team, thank you for this presentation. My question is, the 20-foot vegetated barrier, is that one of those highway noise barriers that you typically see?
No, it would be just vegetation. So right now, this area is forested and there will need to be some grading done back there to build those units. But the engineers have shared that they would plan to replant that area after construction to essentially create the start of a vegetative buffer, so that, you know, even though there is a fairly wide area in this location that's existing, that's obviously off-site VDOT right-of-way. And so we wanted to make sure that we could demonstrate that we recognize it's appropriate to have a bit of a vegetated buffer there too. It just won't be left, unfortunately, in its natural state in that particular location, like it will be along the rest of the project boundary. So.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. We have our last question from the audience, the attendees, and that's Taylor. Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Taylor Algren. I am a resident and owner of a small unit in Huntington Village. I'm also a new resident here, just moved in about 4 months ago. And I just, thank you for sharing the plans, and I'm really interested to engage in this process. My concern is one that's also a county level concern, but would love to see it addressed more effectively here. And that is around supporting residents to, future residents to stay away from using a car and using alternative means of transportation. I appreciated Kathleen's Jump's explanation about walking around the area, and appreciate also Kevin McDermott's concern or challenges to address some of the concerns. I do think that we need to develop access to folks who can walk to places like the Bel Air Market and commerce more effectively, and that this development should be contributing to that, not just along the frontages, but in order to support full access to both Ivy Road on either side and the Bel Air Market there. Valerie, you mentioned that there's walking access to for those future residents, and I'd love to hear more about what that is. I think also bicycling is extremely important for the development of the Charlottesville greater area, and the Leonard Sandridge Road is a much safer road than Old Ivy Road and Ivy Road, and I think that there should be clear access, not along the Ravana Trail necessarily, because it's quite a bumpy trail, but imagine some inexperienced person on a bicycle being able to access another road that has some safe protection. So that would be another thing I would look at, both the bicycle access on both roads, and also the storage of bicycles. So I don't know what the county legislation says, but there should be safe storage of bicycles so that folks can actually park their bicycles, their e-bicycles. They can charge them in those places, and they can use them as an alternative means to driving. Folks all around the world are using electric bicycles to do their shopping, to take kids to school, to go to their jobs. And this is the future that we need to look at in amongst our climate crisis. And I do appreciate finally that you do have public transportation in mind. I think I don't know what the regulations are, but I think let's build it and support a bus route on Old Ivy Road. There's going to be hundreds, if not 1,000 people that would access that. And if it's inter-county to into the city, that would be even better. So thank you for listening. And I really hope that we can really support transportation that takes people out of their cars and on foot, on their bicycles, and on public transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Have Chris Rembold, that's the last person for the committee to speak.
Very quickly, the question is it anticipated that a traffic light would be necessary given the amount of traffic coming in and out of this?
No, there's not. It's not part of the recommendation of the traffic engineers based on the study. And I believe that's because the number of trips or the warrants are not met that would either require or even permit that. So I see Thomas Ruff, our traffic engineer, nodding his head. So thank you.
All right, that's it for me.
If I could briefly just respond to the comments from Taylor a few moments ago, I think, and invite the Gray Star representatives to add any additional comments to that. But I think it's fair to say that they too share the interest and appreciation for the need to have a community that is as walkable and bikeable as possible. Part of the many attractions they have to this property is its location, its proximity to the Darden School, the business school, and other nearby destinations, and are very interested in looking for more ways they can enhance that even further. They certainly will not be able to solve all the problems that are already existing, but they're certainly interested in making sure internally, at a bare minimum, that there are improvements and opportunities, and looking to ways to connect to other infrastructure, or at least lay the groundwork for future infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. In reference to those questions, thank you very much. We're the CAC Hydraulic Road, we're going to move right into Stonefield, and we'll hear from Sam Strong. Sam.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not on video. I'm home again with my 2.5-year-old, and you don't want to see all the things that are happening. So thank you all so much for letting me talk. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Samantha Strong. I'm the general manager for the Shops at Stonefield here in Charlottesville. And just a really quick update. We are so excited. If you can't feel the energy and the momentum already, you will be in the next month. So mid-December, we will have the Torchy's Tacos that's going into the side of the old Pier 1 building closest to Hydraulic Road. That first section of that building will be Torchy's Tacos out of Austin. This will be their first Virginia location. We are so excited. It's going to be incredible. So then the middle section of that Pier 1 building, that lease has officially been signed. So I can announce that that will be Lens Crafters. We'll be moving into the center section. As we build out the third spot of that building, we have probably about 5 different businesses looking at that space. We know it's probably going to be retail. We're hoping to stay with something local, but it's so right now we're focusing on the first 2. But Torchy's will be open December 15th. So they have set that as their opening. Another business that's brand new that will have everything done and will be open will be at the 2075 section of Bond Street. Very close. It's only ironic. It's very close to Duck Donuts, if you know where that is. And that is going to be, it's a business called Solid Core. It's a specialty Pilates reformers studio out of DC. And so they will be opening up there. A lot of people asked about the Elements. The Elements studio does yoga and kind of mat Pilates. So this is a different style of Pilates. So it's very much going to complement our local yoga studio. So we're very excited. And actually the last, well, not the last, but the other empty space that's actually right next door to the Elements. It used to be called, I think it was the Edge for a while. That is under negotiations right now, as well as I'm very excited to tell you, we do have interest in the old Travinia space. It only took forever, but we do have interest. We are having, well, we aren't, my leasing department is having some meetings. So we are very excited about that moving forward. And then, of course, in the main town center, our opening early spring next year will be Organic Crush. It's Crush with a K. If you frequent Short Pump Mall, they have a location there at Short Pump. It's cold pressed juices, whole fruit smoothies, healthy salads and bowls and things like that. So I think it's going to be a really awesome, especially for breakfast. It'll be a really fun fit to Stonefield as well. And also hopefully this week, everybody cross your fingers. We've been waiting for it forever. Over on our north side of property, most people are familiar with, of course, Costco and BJ's and Jared's. We have Akira Ramen and Sushi that we have been anxious, well, at least we at Stonefield have anxiously been awaiting the opening of Akira. And he is a local gentleman out of, well, he's out of Lynchburg. This will be his second location. Lynchburg is very popular. And we are really excited that hopefully he will be opening this week. And I will be doing a huge promotion and shout out as soon as we can get him staffed up and get his doors open for ramen and sushi. So that is, it's a lot. There's a lot of construction. There's a lot of awesome projects. But the momentum is great, and we're really excited about our big tree lighting this month. So that should be another fun event. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask or email me or reach out. I always love talking about Stonefield.
Thank you so much, Samantha. We really appreciate that information on Stonefield. So we have short time, but I know Diantha and Jillian have some information for us, and then I can close out. Jillian?
You want to go first? Well, in an effort, I'm just going to say to folks that one of the items that some people on the committee might be interested in is that we're going to be starting discussions around our capital improvement program. And to save time tonight, I'm just going to ask Michaela if she will send out the meeting times that people can actually go in and listen to those discussions, because they're public discussions, 2 representatives from the school board, 2 representatives from the Board of Supervisors and staff. So Michaela, if you'll just send that out for folks in case they want to listen to those discussions, that would be great. And I'm going to stop for this evening. It was a great meeting, and it was great to see everybody, and I hope everybody has a nice Thanksgiving.
And I'm only going to add on to what our supervisors has just sent to us, that if there was a lot of conversation about transit and transportation, just to let everybody know that there's a virtual meeting on the regional transit vision on the 18th, so 3 days from now. And Michaela, do you have the link to that? Because one can sign up for it. If not, I'll forward it to you. How about that? That would be, I think, while it's not exactly in the area that we covered this evening, there's a lot of good information about what's going on and how the county, in partnership with the city and another organization, are looking at how to improve and how to approach enhanced transportation, particularly in our area, and Samantha, some of it around your area too, at Stonefield. So that's all I'll add. Oh, and congratulations, Supervisor McKeel.
All righty. Well,
thank you very much.
So we're going to call for an adjournment, but I want to say that we will not be meeting in December and in January, because our meeting time conflicts with the MLK Junior Day. Michaela will send out a poll later to get a time where we can meet, since it conflicts with MLK. So opportunities for the public to access and participate in electronic meeting will be posted at a later date in accordance with the emergency ordinance number 20-A16 and open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. So can we adjourn this meeting?
Bye, Chair.
All righty. Yeah.
Bye, Chair.
Thank you, everybody.